that's funny. Good morning, YouTubers. I just popped into to YouTube to set up a live stream and apparently clicked the wrong button, and so I'm already streaming. So I'm not even able to schedule this stream. But I'm actually going to start at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to actually put a note in here. And then we'll just put a note on the screen. Something like starting 8 a.m. EST. There you go. Be back in a bit, friends. Started a little late, but that's okay. Alright. Before we go too much further on this. Morning, Val. Looks like Val is up. Alright. So yeah, I had noticed yesterday this. Okay. There's a selection, okay. Yeah, there was a situation yesterday where Krita appeared to not be responding to the tablet stylus, which really hasn't happened. I seem to remember like a really long time ago having that be an issue, many versions ago. But, anywho, okay, so let's rock and roll here. The stuff that was done late yesterday came out nice. Pretty happy with it. I think I did the parallax matte painting, or I guess background Tahoma yesterday afternoon, and then yesterday evening knocked out these two shots. This one's got an issue though. We need to put some bars on those windows, and then the shadows that would go with that. It did come up. The issue of bars on the windows kind of came up. It's an interesting thing to ponder. Here we have bars on the windows. Now, if you think about it, how stupid is that? I mean, think about it. The wall is several hundred feet up off the ground. You don't really need bars on the windows to keep someone in that room. And it's also a legitimate question to ask yourself, well, why would Tianara be treated so harshly as to be thrown in a prison cell anyway? So those are questions that were brought up to me. And I'm going to say that let's favor the symbolism over the, well, I don't know what you say, realism maybe? Let's favor symbolism over realism in this case. We're going to say it's more important to really be clear with the audience about what we're trying to convey than to necessarily make every detail be, you know, legit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a zone here on a new layer, and we're going to keep this pretty dark. Take the G key and go like that. Okay, so now the bars are on the window. That was pretty simple. And I guess the bars, I think I am going to just leave them on their own layer in case at some future date we were to decide that in fact those bars need to be taken back out. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually say we're going to call this bar shadow. We'll knock out these shadows in a hurry and then be able to move on. So I'm going straight to black here. So anyway, whoever's watching, welcome. We're just going to jump right into it this morning. I'll try not to be too blabby about things no one cares about, and try to focus on making a cartoon. That's what we're going to do, is make a cartoon. And now I've been thinking this morning about and actually let's turn TNR off for the moment. Thinking about what the objectives are with this show. You know, I'm looking at the script and the timing, and you know, the reality is, I think, I could be wrong, but I think that if I really got focused, I'd probably have to be working like 12 hours a day, but it actually would be possible. It'd be a stretch, but it'd be possible to knock out an episode a month. It would be tough, though. I mean, you know, you're going to be pretty focused, pretty much working all day, every day, baby. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just keep opening up this brush a little bit so that the shadows diffuse naturally. I'm not even really totally sure that the way the shadows falling there is completely accurate to what it would be. But I would say that's probably okay. Let's put TNR back in. Okay, that's kind of interesting. That would mean that the shadow would actually have to go over her. Okay, fine. Fine, fine, fine. I'll put the shadow over her like this, and then we'll actually erase it and correct that. That's not even a problem because she fortunately doesn't actually move in this shot. So, and I would say that it's probably goes without saying that if she's got a shadow here, that would effectively block the shadows from the light. So let's kind of tone those down a little bit. What can you say? Things you have to correct. Oops, don't want to be in shadow mode now. So I'm going to just kind of go like that and then say, we'll just kind of go like this. I think it's a really cool, the symbolism of it is pretty useful, I would say. So just going to kind of run with that. File, save, and maybe tone it down a little bit. I don't know, let's look at it both ways. When you're trying to make these creative decisions, you want to move fast. Just bop it in, bop it out, and feel where it hits the pocket. Okie dokie. And by the way, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what is on this layer? Is this like, no, oh, this might be Golic. This is Golic. Yes. Okay, so this is Golic. Okay, so I'm thinking we actually should have foreground bars as well. So we'll stick them in there as silhouettes, just like Golic, and then if we change our mind, no big deal. So all we got to do is maybe there, just kind of put them in a spot that feels pretty balanced. Whoops, I should have hit the shift key. Yep, G key. Okay. Control Shift A, and I don't know if I like that. File, save. Morning, Steve. How's the weather there in the UK? Let's see, render, and this was the last one we did, so boom, we'll just render those frames out. Let's jump back to Vegas. Just double check the flow here. So we're gonna boop, pop that out. Yeah, that does look better. That looks better. Okay, the continuity from there to there is really good too. So now, to be fair, are we going to actually try to drive home all those shadow bar shadows in the next shot? I would say no. I think once we cut to close up, we probably can. Very cold. Yeah, I think it's about 20 here. We do the Fahrenheit thing, so I guess for you guys that would be, what, a couple below or something? A couple degrees below zero. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Okay, so she's going to lift her head. Yeah, I must say the continuity actually is quite nice. Alright, let's double check the script, see if she says anything. Page roughly 22, I think, is where we want to be. So, if anybody out there has questions or comments, just post them in the chat. I'm going to be trying to focus on the work here, and I'll be glancing up at the screen every once in a while to see what's going on. Okay, so Golic comes in and, oh my, but you are the lucky one. TNR scowls. Oh, spare me. You ought to show your mother a little appreciation. Okay, we'll get through that. So this is kind of good news in the sense that once she settles into this pose, we're probably going to be able to do a heck of a lot with it. So I suspect once we get this art here, we're going to probably be jumping over to Tahoma. Bottom line on that is that the workflow of going from Krita to Tahoma is certainly emerging as probably the definitive. After cutting and pasting the characters from Krita back to Tahoma, This shot, the significant thing is these shots are about the same length. I'm going to say I think this one took about considerably less time and probably is an even stronger shot. So, yeah, I'm just thinking about these things. Always thinking. Boom, 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 boom. There's a little bit of an edge here that I'm not seeing, so let's give that a little bit of a bite on the texture, or the just kind of the folds. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to look at my script, and I got an idea that I want to consider. I thought I remembered in the script Golik actually apologizing about the chains, and I think that belongs in there, honestly. So let's call this a beat, and he's just going to sort of I had mentioned this yesterday. Golik, he has to walk a bit of a fine line, because while moving Tianara into a position of being married to the prince is a good move for him. It actually presents a situation where potentially he has a claim to the throne. But in the meantime, the people that he's abusing are actually being maneuvered into positions of great power. And so he does have a little bit of a game he's got to play here. So what I'm wondering here is, when she looks up, I want to look at the timing here. Yes, when she scowls darkly, instead of, let's change this. I got to think about what her attitude would be. We've got a couple choices we need to make here. So sorry YouTube audience to make you sit through this, but this is a little bit delicate, and I want to stop a moment here. The bottom line is that when her attitude goes kind of dark, okay, so let's just play this out a little bit visually. Okay, that'll probably be a little less boring for people that are watching on YouTube. But here's the thing that's missing is, let's hit the G key, E key, and erase these guys. And then let me just kind of dial in her eyes here. This is obviously not quite wonderful. So what I want to do is I want to give her a real scowling attitude here. And then her hands are going to come up showing the chains. And so the attitude I'm looking for is like, is this how you treat, the future bride of the prince? But she wouldn't say that. That's too on the nose. So I do need to kind of think a bit about how I'm going to present these ideas. But as I like to say when I talk about animation, let's work from the known to the unknown. What I do know is that I'm going to need this attitude. I'm going to need this expression pretty soon. So we might as well get it in there. Okay, and if this is going to happen, let's go ahead and just, I'm not going to put the tweens in there because her hands are probably going to be on separate layers. Boom. Okay, so right about there, we'll just add, let's just block this in. Okay, moving fast here, people. Okay, sort of these trapezoidal shapes that represent the meat of the hands kind of thing. And then she's got these chains on. And I would think she's going to have a little bit more constrained attitude there in the shoulders. just to kind of remember, I'll have her, sort of barking at Golek. So that's good. I think that's going to be a good thing. Now, this is what we're doing here. Actually, is we're really getting into the key poses and attitudes that are going to be carrying through a number of shots. So I'm really looking at a fairly lengthy sequence here that I'm sort of essentially making notes, if you will, so I don't forget what I'm doing. So the truth of the matter is, this progression here is actually going to be in the shot after we cut from her to Golek. So she looks up, cuts to Golek, he says what he says, and then she darkens and says, it's kind of like, is this how you treat royalty or something of that nature? But, in my opinion, that's a pretty stupid line, what I just said. That's not what I want to have her say, I don't think. So these are the sort of things I sort of have to sort through. Okay, and probably this is where we're talking Tahoma territory. The truth of the matter is, when she says this, probably you're going to have her head come up a little bit in a little bit of a haughtier sort of frame. I wonder if actually even flattening out slightly like that would be perhaps appropriate. See? Oh yeah, is this how you treat your future queen? Blah blah blah. Now I can't see. Here's the thing. This is where you get knowing the script helps. She can't say, "Is this going to treat your wait? Is this how you're going to treat your future queen?" Because it's specifically the servant girl a little later in the scene that reminds TNR that, hey, you might want to quit complaining, because if you play your cards right, you're going to be the queen one day. It isn't like tomorrow, but that's the track you're on. So, which probably I would think that the psychology of this is probably mysterious to a lot of men and completely understandable to a lot of women, which is, the girl's going to be married to the prince. Why in the world would she not be, thrilled about it? But the idea is, it's, no one asked her. This is against her will. So the position she's going to be in for her is nowhere near as important as the fact that nobody bothered to consider what she might think about the idea. So her headdress would actually flow over like that. So anyway, all this fun attitude stuff. Okay, so now let's jump back and take a look at the script. So initially we had Golek saying, "You are the lucky one." Fine, but you are the lucky. Okay. I think I'm going to go straight. I'm going to keep. I'm going to stick with the simple. This is outrageous for the moment. I may wind up. Whoops, that needs to be dialogue. I may change that, but for the moment, I think that's probably okay. Hey, NS Animation. Well, this is the kind of thing that you're probably not gonna. You guys might not think. It's like, why are you like sweating over one line of dialogue? You got to remember, you blow the dialogue here, you might be really screwing yourself up later. It's like I said, for her to say, it would be completely appropriate for her to say, "Is this how you treat your future queen?" If it wasn't for the fact that later here in the script, we realize that that point has not really occurred to her. And it winds up being explained to her organically by another character. So, and plus you want your dialogue to be dense. You wanna really be thinking about the story points that you're trying to advance with your dialogue and obviously your body language and everything else. So there's a lot to manage, and so NS Animation, haven't seen you here before. Welcome to the party. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to kind of go with that for the moment. Let's go back and let's just look at the continuity here a little bit. Alright. So, got the establishing shot rolling in. Just want to kind of sort of feel this. If I'm going to cut over to Tahoma, which I expect I will, then I suppose, yeah, I suppose I'd like to put this whole sequence in a single batch, but let me see. She says, I demand. He goes, oh, spare me. You ought to show your mother some appreciation. I apologize for the chains. Okay, so I put that in the storyboard. I had never had it in the script. I thought I remembered that somewhere. You've been promised to the prince, and to the prince you'll be wed today. Okay, so that was added to the script yesterday because we needed the word today added because it's important that the audience gets the fact that this is all on a very accelerated timetable. Okay, so follow the servant girl pops in here behind Golek, but I think probably here's where we should break the sequence. So I'm just going to put a marker there. I want to just see what my timing situation is from here to here. That is, yeah, 32 seconds. Actually, this whole sequence, see, this is a good example. Hey, Art of Law. Well, no. Her mother, that's a great question, actually. So it really shows you're thinking about what's really going on here. And your brain is actually kind of spitballing creatively about how you might... that's a really cool question because it shows a lot about what's going on in your mind, which I completely understand, having written a lot of screenplays. The way you take a microcosm of story information where you don't have the whole story, and then your brain begins to spin off and create all kinds of cool things, which can make for an awesome story. But what you can do is shoot yourself in the foot because there's one little key detail you didn't know or that you forgot. And the key detail here is that it's her mother that put her in this situation in the first place. Her mother is actually the one who did it to her. Because back here, this is actually, just so you know, give you guys a quick and dirty backdrop, is that so there's Mel on the one hand and then there's TNR on the other hand. So the bottom line is that she finds out in this scene just a little bit earlier that she's being married, that she is to be married. And she's being married to the prince. And so her mother's like, oh, isn't it wonderful? And she's like, no, it's not wonderful, you know. So she doesn't like the idea. And it ends on a bad note with her stomping out of the room. And the next thing we see of her is actually her locked up here. And then Golek, who's the one who arranged all this with her mother, now she's stuck dealing with him. And he's essentially an aide to the king. He's very close to the king. And he's the scheming bad guy Rat, who's sort of the villain of the piece. But it turns out that he and the mother actually are distant cousins, and so getting the girl married to the prince puts him in the position where he might have a claim to the throne. So he's definitely got some reasons to be moving these chess pieces around. That's what's going on. So, as I say, I don't know that we need to belabor that line of dialogue right now. I could definitely sit here for 20 minutes just thinking about how to pack as much valuable information into this one line of dialogue without giving anything away, right, that we don't want to give away yet. I tell you, that is how it goes. That's the bad news. The good news is once you spend those 20 minutes, what usually happens is it sort of sends you into a creative flurry, and you wind up getting a lot written really quickly. But of course here the script is already written. We're making little tweaks as we go. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I think I'm gonna do the bold thing, and I'm just gonna move this forward and just to get Golek in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the, well, let's just call this Golek. Let's put Golek on this layer, and we'll just call this Tia. This is it's a pencil test essentially. So here, let's go back to the beginning. Just insert a key here, and then I'm gonna be stupid. I'm going to actually take this, insert a key there, delete this key here, and then insert another key here, and then take this layer and Control E, bake it down. So now we've got this. This works. Okay, cool. I'm just going to tighten this up a little bit, and we're almost ready to just go to ink and paint. So, because if you really look at the storyboard, what we see is that, and I'm kind of being a little slower here, by the way, on the drawing this morning, as far as, I mean, I don't really need to go over this drawing, but I'm just kind of getting in the groove yet this morning, so I'm taking a little more time to just be Mr. Artsy Fartsy for a moment. But once we get the ink and paint done on these two characters, most of the next 30 seconds of the show is really just interaction between the two of them. It's a dialogue thing, so we don't need to do the same work 50 times over. Okay, so let's see, on his costuming, I'm going to say he maybe was slightly, okay, cool, I understand. If you want to address the script too later, is this how you treat a cousin? Well, that's, again, great idea, and because you don't really know the whole backstory, you don't realize that doesn't quite work either. It's a good idea, though, but it doesn't quite work. And the reason it doesn't work is because Tianara doesn't know that this guy is a distant cousin of her mother. This is very much a plot that was hatched between the mother and this guy that's the aide to the king. And we're talking about distant cousins that maybe see each other once every 10 years kind of thing. But he, being close to the king, there's that. And then she owns a lot of land up in the Northlands where they're still kind of prospering. In the main place where the story happens, they've been dealing with a drought for quite a few years, actually. And the Northlands are still, the rain still falls up there. So anyway, her mother owns a bunch of land up there. She's a quite wealthy woman. And so Golik sort of, that's this guy, he saw the opportunity to maybe hatch a plot to make some inroads to the throne. So basically, I have to think about it, but I don't think anybody in the story except Asher, one of the good guys, realizes the family connection between the two baddies. But we'll get to that. I mean, Asher actually brings that up in a scene, and I mean, I actually think it's the next scene, as a matter of fact, if I recall. So you got all this exposition, and then I think the next thing that happens is we're back here in their home, and this is where we repeat that establishing shot, and then he is poring over this letter and realizing that this family connection might be the whole point of the wedding. And that is an ominous foreboding because it means that Golik is maneuvering to get a claim on the throne. Now, I do want to maybe... I want to shrink her down a little bit. She's actually taking up a little too much space here in the... Now that doesn't help. In the frame. That's, again, probably a little too big. Okay, so anyway, these are things you guys couldn't possibly know. Very cool world building. It's neat to see this coming together. Thanks. Thanks. Okay. Alright, that's probably okay. Alright, we're going to do ink and paint. I'm going to actually just change this to ink. And we're going to darken this up. I should say, yeah, dyslexia moment. What I meant to say was lighten it up. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit the B key. We have to make a decision here about color. We could put this on top. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do standard ink on this. Yep, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use the pencil. So that actually suggests, let me think about this for a minute. Yeah, let's do this. I'm going to use my turn down. And let me check this out too. What happens if I do a cleanup operation? Yeah, it's just not clean enough, unfortunately. Not clean enough. So I think what I'll do is just tighten up and then we will clean up. The only problem is, with Krita, once you, kind of hard to explain. If I take and made this like only 2% opaque, and then later I did another curves operation to actually make all these lines disappear completely, under the hood Krita kind of sort of knows they're there and that they were there, and it tends to make fill operations not work that well. So we're really much better off to just go into a separate layer. So I'm going to turn on the stabilizer, and we're about to like rock and roll here in a big way. Now if I want the cleanest possible lines, I should probably actually use that. So here we go. Gonna move fast. It's almost like a speed paint. Let's zip right in there. I'm not sure I'm loving the thickness of those lines. Usually I use the pencil, but I really want to get those cleaner fills on her. Boom. Okay, let's zoom way in. Never hurts to flip the canvas, just to be sure. Maybe a little adjustment there. And I think her nose is slightly in the wrong position. Okay, not bad. We'll go ahead and put that in there. Boom. Boom. Okay. Did we get it? I think so. Now I'm going to hit the insert key, and we're going to keep flying here. Flying like the wind, racing like the wind. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. It's not a problem to go super fast if you just being cognizant of when things get sloppy or start to go off the rails, and you intercept it. You intercept it. Yeah, I don't think TNR, if she knew that Golik was her cousin, she probably would be even more aghast than she is by the situation she found herself in. Golik doesn't, he's got no love for her as a family member. He's just concerned about his ambition. He's a baddie. He's a bad guy. He's been doing it for years. He actually architected the overthrow. The murder of the father of the current king, which of course the current king doesn't realize that Golik is the one who was behind the death of his father. And it was a mess. It was a mess. He architected the deaths of the king and queen, leaving two brothers. But the older brother was essentially a good guy, and the younger brother, well, let's just say he was a little more open to suggestion, and so you almost had like a double coup in that the older brother was killed so that the younger brother could take the throne, because that was the one that Golik knew he'd be able to influence. And then in the wake of those dark events, oops, wrong key there. Okay, that is not what I meant to do right there. Then I'm having a brain fart because I can't draw and think at the same time, so you guys will just have to wait. The drought and famine happened. Okay, okay, we got a little grace on that frame because it is quite literally one frame. That I don't quite like. She is actually supposed to have a little bit more of an inquisitive attitude. Guess we could probably turn that up a little bit on this particular pose. Nope. Nope. Now one thing you can do, although it tends to make your ink lines bigger, is you can hit shift and draw a circle, and then you hit alt and you can move the circle around and get it positioned perfectly. Well, but there's the problem. I didn't really need for that to be filled, did I? So, circle, slightly smaller, and so there's the other problem you have with doing that. Is generally what you just saw is pretty typical. You pretty much, let me see here. Yeah, you pretty much need to go 2 pixels smaller on that tool if you actually want it to look the same as a. So, just kind of making the command decision really today to use the pen for her ink instead of the pencil. There's no right answer. There's no right answer. That, okay. Once you zoom out, you can see the issue. Alright. B key, Control Shift A, so I don't have a selection. I want to draw that little thingy dingy. Can't remember what they call that thing, but I've been trying to remember what they call that thing for quite a while. I just don't know. I just don't know what they call it. Okay, so, right there, beautiful. Yep. And boom. Okay, cool. We're rocking. This is looking good. Okay, that doesn't have to be a closed shape because obviously this is all part of a cloak-ish situation that kind of a one-piece type situation. Now, not really, but because the headdress is separate, but I think I kind of played it that they were the same color. S is being its usual stupid self, and the live stream is going to just keep sort of blanking out and or buffering here and there. It does this. It doesn't matter what I do as far as the settings. It doesn't matter. It still blanks out multiple times a day. Multiple. Alright, and I'm going to hit the A key, and this really needs to be more like there. You know, it's the third eye situation. So boom, let's get Golik in there. I am going to switch, by the way, to the pencil and turn the smoothing off. And we do not want to have a selection. I want to take this a little more loosely. A little more loosely. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Keep this simple-ish. So yeah, we're going to get a lot of leverage on these shots. In the sense that once we've got the assets colored and everything, we're going to be able to use them for quite a few shots here. The bad news is that there's a number of shots from earlier in the show that just because of the way the quality of the work has progressed, I'm really sure I'm going to want to redo, which is a sucky thing because that means that's going to slow me down a bit, but that's okay. You got to do what you got to do. Boom, boom. Like, whoops. Well, this is where rotating the canvas kind of sort of makes a lot of sense. Golik losing his hair. Losing his hair. We want to have a little indication there, as well as a little indication of an ear. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. Man, he's an evil stinker. Golik is a bad guy. He's a pretty good villain, though. I mean, he's not like pure evil. I mean, he is, but he doesn't present like pure evil. So, from a storytelling standpoint, he's not pure evil. He's a charmer. In fact, that's the problem. He's been charming the king for too many years. Okay, so in all reality, okay, we want to kind of follow anime convention here. So what matters is the overall attitude here, because all the lip sync is going to be contained on another layer, and we're not going to animate the chin and everything with the lip sync. That's not how we're doing this show. That would just be too costly and time consuming to implement. So we're using, and by the way, the more that I've used standard anime practice, which is what we see here just in this recent scene, all the lip sync is essentially you have closed mouth, open mouth, and big open mouth. That's really it. Closed mouth, open, and then much more open, and then you just toggle between the three shapes. Now I made an exception with Mel by giving him an O shape, like an O type shape. But for the most part, it's actually just two-shape lip sync. Because remember, this might have to be translated into other languages. You know, my other movies have been translated into quite a few other languages, actually. I mean, we sold the one movie in China. Oh, brother, I mean, I could go down the list. So then you got to deal with translations, which, of course, with a movie, you're stuck with the fact that the lips don't move correctly. But at least with a cartoon, you can mitigate that with your lip sync practices. So anyway, there you go. Now here what we said we were going to do. Oops. We're going from this to this. So we need to insert a key here. So yeah, this is this post. Let's pull that over there. And now what we're going to do is we've got to make a little adjustment. Let's see. In this case, probably the best adjustment methodology would be to take, let's just get rid of, that's what the E key is for, is erasing. Let's get, OBS is like disconnecting and reconnecting every couple minutes. You know what, folks, to tell you the honest truth, today, I just don't care. So I apologize for that. I truly apologize, but I just don't want to, like, deal with, how come the live stream's not quite, you know what, I don't care. So I think for most people, with the work I'm doing, it probably doesn't matter much anyway. But I just really want to focus on getting this work done. So YouTube live streaming is important. Getting progress done on the cartoon is 10 billion, trillion, zillion, quadzillion times more important. It is what it is, my friends. It is what it is. Hence, the arguably catastrophic level of difficulty that we seem to be having with our live stream on an ongoing basis. We don't seem to do this. Is simply not our top priority. As much as I wish it could be, actually, because it really bugs me that my viewers are potentially having a bad experience. I don't like that idea. Oh. Okay, so she's going to rise up, and this is actually going to be a modification of that. And then, as we saw before, there was a certain amount of little bit of a skew situation and then a little bit of a stretch situation, like so. And pretty much that's it. Okay, so the reality is that the chains and the hands really need to be on another layer. Not only that, but honestly, this pose actually looks better than this pose. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to take this, drag it back here, and then just make this an animation. So if you're going to do that, then this key doesn't even belong in there. This is a simple, you're just moving it, right? And a lot of times those types of things can be very, very useful. Oh, aren't you the lucky one? Then what's the meaning of this? Okay. So, having done that, knowing that we're going to stick the hands in there, what we need to do is get this painted, I'd say definitely this one, and yeah, we'll do the paint on those three. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, we've got 5 poses to paint. We are going to rock and roll. Thusly, in the prior shot, her garments were this type of a color. Before we do the paint, we're going to make one little tweak to the ink lines, which is we're going to make them a little bit red, and I'm going to say about 12% red, and then I guess just on the RGB levels, let's see what happens if we pull this up to about 25%. That's probably too light. We're not, so we're going to go about 10-12% lightness and 10-12% redness. Okay. Now hopefully, that looks pretty darn close. I'm going to sample this color and see what I get. So let's hit the B key, and then I'm going to hit Control Sample. Okay. And stupid Krita. There it is. Yeah, that's not too far. That's not too far off the color I've been using. Now it seems to me it should maybe be slightly darker. So I think I'm going to just press it back down a little bit. I don't know. It isn't much of a change, that's for sure. Nope, I'm skipping it. I'm just going to go with that. Okay, so with that, we will grab our blue, our sort of diffuse blue garment color, hit the F key. We are in behind mode already, and as you can see, Krita's a little bit stupid with how it deals with its pixel data. You can see what the problem is. This is completely common. This is like Krita does this all the time. Alright, so since it does that, let's actually do an experiment. As long as we're here and we're feeling frisky, let's do an experiment. What we're going to do is, and by the way, here's what we're going to do. I'll tell you what, we're going to take an extra step. I'm going to do an undo on that curves operation so that we can do it as a filter. So I'm going to go Control M again. Let's do the color situation just like we did. A little bit of lightness and a little bit of red, and then what we're going to do is we're going to apply it as a filter mask. So that means we can always turn it off. So now we're going to hit the S key, and we're going to hit Control A, Control C. Now I'm actually going to paste this into Tahoma and simply see what happens. Okay, so that's Brave, that's Tahoma. Okay, so we're going to create a new shot, new scene. Gosh, just to be safe, I guess we should save our work. So we're going to, I guess we're going to wait for Tahoma to save our work. Then we're going to go new scene. And first thing we're going to do is change the scene settings per our convention to 8 frames per second, not 24. Okay, so if you're If you're a diehard Disney purist that absolutely insists on 24 frames a second, sorry. Go try to create a cartoon all by yourself that way and see how it goes. Now, if you're creating a short or a little demo piece, great, do it up. It's awesome. But for an actual show, if you go through and watch, whatever your favorite cartoon is, you're going to find that most of the animation looks pretty much like this. Most of it is, in fact, happening at 8 frames a second. There's some things that can't for various reasons, usually because they're moving too fast, but for the most part. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this. I think if I hit Control V, okay, it says there's nothing to paste. Hey, Kenneth. Kenneth. What a cool name. Kenneth. All right, I'm going to actually go back here and do this again. So we've got the ink layer. There it is. And I'm going to go Control C and see if Tahoma wants to cooperate. I'm curious what this is going to do. Okay, there it worked. Okay, so the reason I did that is I want to find out if doing fill operations on the standard raster levels here in Tahoma actually is more effective than doing fill operations in Krita. Because you saw it just a minute ago. I mean, the fill operations, once you do any manipulation to your lines at all, can become a bit problematic. So we might as well find out if we're going to be able to do the job more effectively here. If we are, let's just stick with what works. I'm not, frankly, super optimistic about that. We'll see. One thing I do see actually here is that it appears to me that the filter mask coloring did not get applied. Okay, so what that means is the color here is a little different because when we cut and pasted, this is what we got cut and pasted. Well, since we did it as a filter mask, let's just flatten the layer, because what that's going to do is apply that slight color correction to every single frame in our ink. So now I can go Control C, flip over to here, and I'm actually going to do it this way. I'm going to hit the S key, and I'm going to draw a rectangle around this and delete it. Okay, and then I'm just going to go Control V, and now we should see, yeah, see, that's the correct color. So now that we've got it selected, actually I want her a little smaller in the frame anyway, so I'm just going to pop that down there and we're good to go. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to say, Inio-san, yeah, Tahoma. I'm bouncing, Inio-san. How you doing, by the way? Good morning. We're bouncing between Krita and Tahoma. Simple reason, having gone through and done some like hotkey modifications and stuff in Tahoma, Tahoma and OpenTunes for me are essentially the exact same program, because one is just a fork of the other. Tahoma is just a slightly modified version of OpenTunes. Almost everything you can do in Tahoma, you can do in OpenTunes. There's one key difference that affects my workflow, which is that I can do what I just did. I can cut and paste from Krita to Tahoma. So what we're trying to do right now is we're saying, look, when we did the fill operation, we got those clunky, boxy lines. Is it any better in Tahoma? The truth is I don't know. I just haven't done a ton of fill operations with standard raster levels, so this is what we're about to find out. So I need to hit the R key and sample that color right there, and then I'm going to hit the B key, which I'm using this brush, which is a pretty flexible brush. I really want the size on it to be set at 0, so OpenTunes Tahoma has a bit of a weird way of dealing with brush sizes, in that 0 is sort of the default size of the brush, and then you can go from -3 to +3. Okay, so like I said, I'm not super optimistic. I suspect this isn't going to be all that great, but let's find out. So I'm going to hit the fill tool, and one of the key things with fill operations, and by the way, let's save our work. Let's just save it right now. This is 350? Yeah, 350. Let's go ahead and save this on both sides. Let's save it here, because we may be having to come back to Krita in a hurry. At this point, I just don't care. I just want to know how can I get my work done efficiently and all the rest. So now what Tahoma is actually going to do is Tahoma is going to save any images that you cut and paste from Krita. You guys might want to know, actually will all get saved when you save your scene. If you do save all, Tahoma will save it in the extras folder for your project. So if I scan through here, I will find, I'm not going to do it right now, but the image that I just pasted into Tahoma is now stored on the hard drive. So if something went wrong, you can always get it back. Okay, check my channel, Conan Animations. Conan Animations. Should we check it, friends? I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting that more and more. I'll check it out. Yeah. 4 subscribers, and it doesn't look like there's much there. So, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's do a fill operation. So let's grab kind of that blue color we were talking about. All right, kind of a muted color on her garment. It was pretty much something like that. Okay. Now, probably, yeah. See, you see all those gaps. Well, that's because what you really need to do is hit Shift, because there's a range of strength on your fill depth. And that's not too bad. That is not too bad, but really it's not quite hot enough. So, yep, we're still not there. So I'm going to keep cranking it up. And I would say no improvement. So what that means for me, yeah, because it means I still have to go in and touch up these, you know, this stuff here. So if I'm going to have to do a bunch of touch up no matter what, all in all, the filling operations are much stronger in Krita, because we're going to be able to use the freehand path tool to tighten those fills up. So having said that, just to make life simple here, I'm going to just draw that line with the blue color, and then we wanted to patch this little area right there. Okay, so now we are already in behind mode, so let's just go fill, but we'll hit fill like 7 or 8 times. Okay, not great, not horrible. Now what I'm going to do is hit the G key, which is the freehand path tool, and just do a little tuning up. And I would rather create the assets in Krita for a lot of reasons. Not only do we have a better ability to dial in exactly the imagery we want, but also, if I wanted to, I could keep this on separate layers, so that you know, you could make modifications to the color after the fact if you needed to, that type of thing. So just going to be a little stronger that didn't quite work. Stronger situation. But no, it's a little strange though, because oh yeah, it was because of the cut and paste. Okay, look at this. I'll show you guys something. I'll bet you, let's go back here. I would bet you a chunk of change that this fill operation will go perfectly. Okay? Let's give it a crack and see if I'm right. So I'm going to hit the fill tool and just go like that. Nope, it's still winky. Okay, I was wrong. I was wrong. So why it is, I have no idea. I have no idea. Not acceptable. Not acceptable. I don't usually have that much trouble with my fill operations. Well, I guess you'd say, well, Dave, why don't you use a Tunes raster level, or what Tahoma calls a smart raster level, where you can do your fill operation and then tweak it after the fact. Yep, that definitely has its place. Okay, so now, well, that's why at the beginning I was debating whether to do the ink or actually do the color first, because a lot of times I've been finding myself just smacking the color in there. And then going back in, and she's got pretty green eyes, and actually patching outlines over the top of it. There's no rule. I think that's a little too dark. I'm definitely spitballing a bit here on my color. But that's okay. She's kind of lost in shadow and everything anyway, so let's just smack that in there. Smack that in there. We'll go slightly darker than white for the eyes. Boom. Slightly darker than white for the eyes. And then her little religious symbol thingy-dingy, whatever you call that. I have no idea what they call those things. Is kind of reddish. And then she's got the most lovely flesh tone. But actually, her flesh tone trends slightly towards the olive. So you want to go a little bit on the green side with her skin. Okay, fill operation. Boom. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, not horrible. Well, the good news is this is another reason why we use Krita for this, because now I can hit the G key, and because we're in behind mode, I can just wrap a lasso around this, and it's just going to fill up any pixels that got missed. So that's looking pretty freaking good, with one little caveat. And the caveat is, I think what I want to do is pick the contiguous color selector and maybe make a slight mod on the flesh tone. Yeah, probably for this. I think so. Yep, we'll do that. That's cool. No big deal. Okay, now I'm going to go, just do a little bit of touch up. We want to be in normal mode now so that we can actually start to cover things up a bit. Cover things up. Cover things up. Touch up, touch up, touch up. Boom. Let's make it pretty. Because remember, this imagery right here is probably going to be getting reused a bit. Alright, so I'm going to hit the N key. Yeah, I mean at full size we can't really see the flaws in the color. Haha, the first videos you don't have to. Oh. Kenneth said goodbye, but then didn't really leave. Okay. So we're pretty much in good shape here. Pretty much in good shape. The question now becomes, what are we going to do about the shadows? Well, we're going to do it the traditional way that I've sort of become accustomed to, which is I'm going to be bold and smack my shadows directly in on my character. 11% opacity is typically what I do. So I want to think about this for a minute, because she's got a couple levels of shadow. First of all, we know she's being hit from behind by the light from the window. So we might as well maybe give her a little bit of highlight there, but we might as well just do that. Okay, next let's look at the local shadows that we know or doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to add a little bit of a node there. Okay, now obviously this is kind of important. Kind of important, people. Slight shadow there. And I'm going to toy with the idea of giving her something I normally wouldn't, which is a shadow underneath. It does look better, but it takes her a little off character. I think maybe just a tiny smidgen would be okay. So yeah, I guess I will go with that. And I'm going to drive that home a little bit more as well. I think that looks pretty good. Now, technically it doesn't make any sense, but I'm still going to put a specular highlight on her eyes, because it just looks good. So, there's TNR. Now, having said that, G key, I'm actually going to, oops, I am going to just erase her mouth. Because the truth of the matter is, we really don't want her mouth in there because it's going to wind up being tweaked out on another layer. So now this, as I mentioned a bit ago, is just an animated modification of the prior shot, kind of like that. So she's blah 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 blah. And yeah, I think we're okay. So the caveat with all this, which is kind of an unfortunate one, is, let's see, this is just a tween. So frankly, this can actually go here. It's just a tween. Okay, so I actually gave myself a little bit of a problem. And the problem is that the native colors, if you want to call it that, of all this area is in shadow. So that means these aren't the actual colors. So that means my job's a slight bit more complicated. But not too much. You'll see why shortly. So I'm going to go ahead and get her colored in. Alright, so I'm saving my work. Boom. And let's just say the thing I want to do, actually I'm going to hit my brush, and the thing I want to do here is go into behind mode and actually just use the brush to create a border here that's sort of consistent with what we're seeing in the next key. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here. This will simply make the job a bit easier going forward. And easier, as you guys know, is better. Right? Easier is better. Okay. So now that means we can go, ooh, by the way, I actually want to catch this little rim light there. Let's see. We kind of lost it there, but that's probably okay. So I'm going to do it that way. So that means if we don't have any leaks, we should be able to hit the fill tool, and we want to be in behind mode. Just hit that a few times, then I'm going to hit the G key. Again, we're still in behind mode. That works. Go to the next frame. Okay, well that's somewhat convenient, but I really don't need that. So now we're going to do the same thing here. Fill tool, boom, boom, boom. Just hit it a few times. And do a little touch up. Do a little touch up. Yeah, I mean, it's a real pretty major deficiency, frankly, in Krita. The idea that you do fill operations and you get all this corruption at the edges, at the point actually in the art that it's most important that the fill be nice and tight and clean. It botches it spectacularly. I mean, really botches it. For a paint program as I mean, frankly, for a paint program as sophisticated as Krita, for a fill operation that looks like that to even be possible, that's obviously because of fragmenting the pixel data under the hood in the way it deals with, you know, sort of blocks of pixels. The very fact that what we're seeing there is even possible in a program like Krita is like comedically ridiculous. Like, really? That's one of those things. It's like you almost have to try to suck that bad, you know. It almost takes effort to suck that bad. Because there is no scenario. Think about it this way. You tell me, okay, bopping up here. We have reconnected. Mikhail says, what do you think about recreating scenes from cartoons like Simpsons, Family Guy, and American Dad to practice animation? I think it's a great idea. You're going to learn different things than you'd learn if you copied a scene from a Disney movie or an anime. They're all going to teach you different things, but yeah, it's a good way to learn. Definitely. No problem. Okay, that was supposed to be an erase. people. Okay. Okay, Limofius says, I think if you redraw it frame by frame, you will not get a lot of skill. But if you draw actions by yourself, oh, I see, he's referring to Mikhail's question. Well, I would say this, Limofius, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is pretty much right in the sense that if you, what I have noticed is that if you were to trace the frames, for example, you're not going to learn anything. Actually, pretty much you're not going to learn anything if you trace. It's pretty weird because you would maybe think that you still would learn quite a bit by tracing, but what I've found is not so much. But if you put it in front of you on the screen and attempt to copy it, then that will help. The step that your brain takes between looking at something and then reproducing it in front of you is a really important step to master. And so copying can be very, very useful, actually. But it's essential that you copy as opposed to trace. That's just what I've seen. Tracing teaches you literally nothing, whereas copying can teach you a lot because your brain has to process what you're seeing and then you translate that into something that you're going to draw. And then the question obviously becomes, can I successfully reproduce it? And then you find out that drawing is actually largely about measuring. It actually is a measuring problem. It's knowing proportionately, where things are, and then placing them correctly in your picture. Okay, so that was a copy. So now we'll go here, and here we can take the F key in behind mode and go boom, boom, boom. See, look at that. Those are artifacts. I would say that that's kind of excusable if the pixel data that we saw here had not been, this is a very clean frame. This is a completely fresh, clean frame with no, I better sample this eye color, by the way. What I'm trying to explain is the fact that it's been true for a long time with Krita that if you draw good clean lines, but then you modify them like with the free transform tool or especially the liquefy tool so that they fuzz out a little bit, then you get that artifacting. But typically if you just draw fresh clean lines and that's all you've done, then typically you don't get the artifacting when you do fill operations. So I truly today don't quite know why it happened. It's not the end of the world. But okay, Ajax is asking me, are you a full-time animator? Well, yeah. If you look at what I've been live streaming for somewhere between like 6 and 8 hours a day. So I guess you would have to say I'm a full-time animator. If you mean, am I working for someone else as an animator? Nope. I work for myself. I've been working for myself since May 15th, 1991. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've been working completely by myself for over 30 years now. By myself, for myself. So, I was not an animator until recently. I did other things. Between 2008 and 2015, I made movies, which you can find on IMDb and elsewhere if you look for them. Meanwhile, I've always had, for all these years, I've had commercial media clients for whom I provide various business-to-business media-related services. So they kind of tie in with the advertising world and that sort of business, as you might expect. And last year or so, I decided, you know what? Kind of sick of making movies. I'm going to make a cartoon. I'm going to do the cartoon thing. So I made myself a full-time animator. Okay, so NS Animation says like reference. With direction by yourself, you get a lot more skill, like reference. Yeah, I mean, reference is always useful. I mean, anybody that's getting real work done is going to tell you that if you don't at least, at least consider using some references, it's kind of dumb. Why wouldn't you? Usually it's because of some misguided sense of originality or something, which is completely stupid. Everything creative is really just a modification of what's gone before. What makes it unique and truly creative is you. And that's the good news. You can't escape the fact that you are you. So no matter what you do, even if you copy somebody's work completely, which of course there's limits on how far you can go with that if you start publishing things, right? Because that's someone else's property. But if you were to just completely redo it yourself, it would be a little different. And not just because your skills are less. It's also partly because you're just you. You're just going to bring a unique tendencies and preferences and choices to the table. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. And that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing, people. Alright, we don't see her eyes there, so we might as well just grab the flesh tone. And what we're going to have to do is just go in and bake in some shadows. Actually, I'm just going to hit the G key. See, if you're in behind mode, it makes it impossible, as you can see, to accidentally color over something. What you see there, you kind of get some of that, well, you really don't in Open Tunes, actually. Okay, so here we do need to incorporate a little bit of her hair color. So her hair color is something like that. So I'm just going to go boom, boom. Okay, I botched that. Is it still acceptable? Yeah, it's acceptable. Okay, we'll go with that. So we'll go here, back here, and it looks like everything else is colored in, so therefore we can go like this, and believe it or not, in a pretty darn short period of time. I think we're close. We got to add the shadows, but we got TNR done. So not necessarily amazing on our time situation, but not horrible. Okay, so I'm not totally buying the hair situation here, so I'm going to go back into normal mode. And I want to make some mods to this. Make some mods. I would never want to be a full-time animator working for a company anyway. Full-time animators get paid pretty poorly. I think that's why you see Aaron Blaze, for example, here on YouTube a lot. Here's a guy that was involved with some major Disney productions, but once you get past the coolness of doing it the first time and it becomes normal to you, then you start to think a little more pragmatically about whether this is really how you want to spend your time. And you might find out that to a degree it's kind of not. Let's see, I'm going to hit the G key. And once again, we're going to turn our opacity down to 11%. Okay, so I can just go in here. Whoops, darn. Kind of missed my little spot there. That's probably okay. That's probably okay. Little bosom shadow. Gotta have that bosom shadow once in a while. Have you worked with the Blender fill tool? Created a donut. It fills the whole donut with the hole. Yeah, I've worked with the Blender 2.8 grease pencil fill tool. Yeah, not a huge fan. Not a huge fan. It's certainly better than nothing. It's certainly better than not having a fill tool. But all in all, I don't find it to be great. Having said that, one thing I have noticed with all animation software, it seems like the fill tool is the bane of all animation software. It's where they almost always kind of sort of get it wrong. Not sure why. I mean, I know how a flood fill algorithm works, and it is kind of somewhat complicated to implement, you know. But it's not that hard. You can decide for yourself, but I think there'd be a little. So theoretically, I can draw this character, and she's going to be essentially infinitely scalable. And that's true. It is scalable. But, yeah, I mean, I've spent a good amount of time. Man, OBS is just like... OBS is disconnecting constantly. I'll answer your question, NS Animation, in a minute. So my question was, what Credible Animation Studio is doing professional production 2D animation where their primary tool is the Blender grease pencil? And the answer is zero. Zero. There are none. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. Why? Because the tools are awesome, but they're not quite awesome enough. They're just not up to grade that you need to, you know, rely on to do your project. And there's, I mean, you know, we could talk for a long time about what that means and exactly what needs to be improved in this, in that. It is my contention at this point, but that for the most part, Blender Grease Pencil 2.0, meaning the Grease Pencil in version 2.8 forward, is really, in practical terms, almost no better than the Grease Pencil that we had in 2.79. With the one exception being the fill tool. Now they're still improving things left and right, and it's all good, but the case I've made here on YouTube is that if you take Blender Grease Pencil art and you render it out to an image sequence, and then you turn around and map that sequence to a plane, now you have all the benefits of polygonal modeling, lighting, and blah blah blah. So basically everything that they're trying to add to the Grease Pencil is just a re-implementation of stuff that's been there in Blender for 20 years. They're just re-implementing stuff that's always been there. And they're implementing it not quite as well as the way it works for polygonal modeling. So what do you really gain with the Grease Pencil? You gain the fact that you don't have to take 1 minute to render it out to an image sequence, you know, so that for example you can get your animation into the compositor, right? You want to use the node-based compositor, okay, I have to take 1 minute, 1 whole minute, and render my animation. Poor me, you know. So the work they're doing on it is really cool, but like I said, it's just not. I just don't see a major studio going, yep, this is the tool we're gonna adopt. Okay, so the only little caveat here would be, I think I really need to get her hair in there, so let's just do it. Let's rock and roll. We're going to do this very, very simply, like this. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say, Nope. Darn it. We got to go, boom. Okay. Yep. Put that there. And I think we just need to have this little indication there. Yep. Now it's making a little more sense. Okay, I don't like her eyes, for what that's worth. We're going to be on that pose for a bit. Her eyes here look way better. So I have to confess I have screwed that up, and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it. I promise I will fix it. Yep. When I've used Blender Grease Pencil 2.0, I always wind up with scenes that I go back and I look at them and I go, God, it just doesn't look right. You know, it's just not. It's really hard to get the quality of lines and outlines and fills and doggone it, what the heck's going on here? Okay, yeah, so I sampled the color and nothing happened. That's not good. Krita, you silly goose, you. Okay, so this is problematic because this really needs to be rotated. This is severely problematic. I'm going to actually watch this. I'm going to just do the rotation and then just patch the hole. I do this all the time, and it really is actually This is the kind of operation. What I'm doing right here is the kind of operation that people spend a year dicking around with all different software to avoid doing. You know, it's like I don't, you know, I want it to be so elegant. You know, and this is why we use vectors so we can squish things around, right? The thing is, what you find in practice is patching this up takes like 30 seconds, which is maybe kind of the reason why in the professional arena this is how they've been doing it for years and years, because it's actually pretty fast and easy. Right? Oh, that took forever, didn't it? Okay, the only thing I don't like here is I'm not buying her eyes. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab this. This is pretty... Actually, this one's better. This one's really round. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to cut that sucker to the clipboard. Okay. Now I'm going to... Okay, so obviously I'm somewhat opinionated. So I hope that's not too much of a bother for you guys. But the only reason I'm opinionated is because my focus here isn't on the software anymore. For a while it kind of was, actually. But no, my focus is simply on how I'm the pragmatic animator. How do we get the job done? That's all we care about. Okay, so now that eye is on a separate layer, which is actually kind of cool, because now we can really fine-tune this. I could bring this over here like so. Yes. And I'm actually going to make a slight mod to the shape as well. Just like that. Poof. And I'm going to raise her eye up a little bit. Okay, NS asked, there may be, well, hold the phone. Hold the phone. Okay, we got to clarify here a little bit. There's a lot of studios, a lot of professional studios that use Blender. As well they should. For CGI, it's one of the best tools available in the world. Now, when those anime studios are using Blender, are they using Blender Grease Pencil 2 as their primary 2D animation tool? Or are they integrating Blender into their workflow for all the other things that Blender does pretty well, like obviously CGI and all the rest? I'll bet you it's probably more of the latter, but it might be some of the former. I'm sure they're poking at it. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be trying it out and saying, well, maybe, you know, maybe this is the tool we want to use. They're going to try. But my suspicion is that for the most part it's going to be a while before you see widespread adoption in the professional space of Blender Grease Pencil. And I would argue that that's pretty much for good reason, because it still has a ways to go before it. What they're doing right now, I'm going to just bake this down. Let me check something here. The eyes are not there and the eyes are not there. Okay, so that's good. So I think what they're doing right now, essentially, on the development team, I would say, is they're trying to round out the feature set, which is that's a good thing that they're doing. Okay. So they're adding features, and people are getting pretty Twitter-pated every couple months when it goes from 2.9 to 2.91 to 2.92, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get that. You know, the problem is that for me, who's, you know, I'm just trying to get real-world 2D animation work done, there's things about the feature set that's already there that probably needs some attention, right? So I don't need more features. I don't need cool new, like lighting effects. Putting lighting effects in the blend, you know, baking that into the Blender Grease Pencil as a feature, to me is just silly. Because if you render your GP animation out to an image sequence, all of a sudden you've got much stronger ability to dink around with the imagery than you'll have in the Grease Pencil. So what you've got with the Grease Pencil is new features that are basically less capable versions of the features that have been in Blender for years. Does that make sense? So because of that, yeah, I mean, from a cost standpoint, it's unbeatable. You know, it's like I tell you guys, you know, I've been using Blender for 20 years, man. I've used Blender since 1999. I know Blender inside and out, pretty much. but I haven't really done the learning curve on 2.8 with the grease pencil beyond. When I was working on this anime thing earlier, before I started this cartoon, I did quite a few shots actually in Blender 2.81, and I had a really, really well dialed in setup with 2.81. So I've really been around the block, maybe more than you guys might realize with Blender, and I've just come to the conclusion that too much of it is just not ready for prime time. It's like whatever it is you think you want to do, trust me, you can do it. You can do it. But what you want to do, you could have done way easier in Krita or Tahoma, generally speaking. That's not a 100% rule, but generally I've just found that to be the case. So it's like, at what point do you just say, you know what, why am I going to fight it? Everything's got stupidities. I mean, look at what you're seeing right here with the Krita fill tool. This is a little bizarre. And there's really no defending the way that fill looks. It's ridiculous. I mean, you do better with the Blender grease pencil, right? You would. I mean, I'm seeing an anomaly here in the underlying data, but this, again, this has been something in Krita perennially. I mean, for at least several years. You know, the kind of silliness we're seeing here with the fill operations is nothing new. It just is what it is. Hey, Amar. So anyway, so for me, it's not a question of adopting Blender Grease Pencil 2. It's a matter of, I already did, and found out that it backfired a lot more than it, well, than it front fired. Let's put it that way. It backfired kind of a lot. I'm gonna redo that. I don't really like that color. I remember it. His color is supposed to be a little more of a saturated red type of color. Let's go to straight red and then just kind of back off from it a little bit. That'd be a smarter way to approach it. Amar's here. Amar's in the house. Amar and Steve, and I think Inio-san's floating around here somewhere. So I could, you know, rant and rave and complain about the Krita fill tool today. But at the same time, as I said, I don't know of an animation software that doesn't struggle with its fill tool. Now, Amar's probably going to tell you guys, probably correctly, that maybe Clip Studio Paint is the one that doesn't have a winky fill tool. What we're seeing here in Krita is obviously just, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's comically ridiculous. Really? That's what's going to, you know, it almost says this to you. After all these years, the Krita development team has never actually done a fill operation. That's what it actually suggests. It's that crazy. You know, here we go, watch. Okay, see all this? Okay, how do you explain that? Well, I know how to explain it. The way Krita is dealing with the pixel data under the hood, using Qt as its underlying framework. So I see a comment just popped up. Is that Amar talking about? Nope. Yeah. See, I knew it. Well, yeah. The utilization of the fill tool being awesome is a big selling point for any software that actually gets it right. The only caveat I would put on top of that is this. In practice, usually when your fill operations go sideways, it actually isn't because of the fill tool. It's usually just because you have leaks. That's where all your time winds up going. So there is that to consider. Golik, you are such a bad guy. You are such a bad guy. And let's see if it's still bad. And it is. But if we hit it like a zillion times, it kind of helps a little bit. So I'm just going to now that because I'm in behind mode, I can just draw lassos around this stuff, and it's going to fill in all the winky-dinky gaps. So not a big deal. Not a big deal. Just a deal. Okay. There we go. There we go. Alright, for vectors you have to use a reference layer, and the rest are great as well. Not really use grease pencil. if someone had any interest at all in CGI, but wanted to say, well, what's my all-around 2D animation tool, I would definitely encourage them to give Blender Grease Pencil a really serious look, I must say. I think if you were starting from scratch, you hadn't tried any other tools, and you're just exploring, then it would be stupid not to at least explore it, because it really is a very capable set of tools. It's just that for me, everything it does, which is cool, my other tools seem to do a little better. Tis what it is. Okay, so now I want to think about this for half a second. I am going to give this man a shadow under his nose. Now, typically, Golek usually has his entire eye area. He's like a raccoon or something. He's usually got this all in shadow, right? So, let's do that. And then we'll kind of go like this. And because we've got alpha locked, we can actually draw outside the lines here, which is about to come in handy again, probably. So I'm just going to kind of put the shadow under here, like that. And then typically, with the close, we kind of want to put a little bit of a shadow lip down there, and maybe just a little indicator of some sort of something from a wrinkle standpoint. Okay, that's actually not too bad for Golek. His mouth will be on another layer. All the mouths are going to be on other layers. So what we need to do is figure out what we're doing from a background standpoint. At this point, the good news is if these drawings are approved, then we should be able to duck into Tahoma and really fly on this thing. Okay, let me think about this. Thinking. And I think actually with this pose we could probably get away with even using the plastic tool for some expression stuff. We'll see. We'll see. Alright, Amar's on a roll, as he is sometimes wont to do, so let's see what Amar's up to. GP is still a new tool, even though it's been around as an annotator. Hero seems like a good movie. Right. I will say this, Mikhail. The thing about Hero, in other words, put it this way, and this, Daniel Lara gets credit for this. He was smart to do it. If you really look at Hero, what you see is this. Everything that it's really easy to make look good with Blender Grease Pencil is the aesthetic choice he made in the look of that show. In other words, he said everything Blender Grease Pencil does well and is easy, let's just make it look like that. So there's a lot of things in there. Like a really good example is the hero character was used in a demo video here on YouTube where they show the lighting effect. That you can do this lighting thing with the Blender Grease Pencil 2. This was not the latest version of that. But what you find out when you dive in and you actually use that lighting effect that they used in that shot in the demo is that what they did with the lighting is literally the only thing you can do with that effect because it's so limited in what it can do. I'm not even going to try to explain why. It's almost like a localized compositing effect. It doesn't act like a light, really. I was kind of shocked at how non-useful the early lighting addition to Blender Grease Pencil was. It was quite useless, actually. Only in very, very, very select circumstances did it have a good application. Again, it's my opinion after really working with it. Not going to kill myself trying to explain why. Well, okay, so we've got 9 concurrent users right now. Let me ask you guys this. Of everybody that's paying attention right now, what software, what's your guys' software of choice? What do you guys use? What do you spend your time in if you're trying to either learn or do animation? Everybody just kind of weigh in with your, just like a one-liner that tells me what is your software that you're like into. I'm very curious about that. Because I'm sitting here talking about Blender, I might find out nobody even gives a rip about Blender around here. Okay, so let's do this. Since this is all in one layer, we're going to go Control A, Control C. Then we're going to jump over here, and I'm just going to start from scratch here. So I'm going to go like this. I'm actually going to draw this rectangle. Just hit delete, and then hit Control V. Okay, there she is. Perfect. Okay. Harmony. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. I tried a crack of Toon Boom years and years ago, and didn't really love it. There's definitely something about vector there's something about vector applications that you really need to be on board with if you're going to go in that direction. So I have Flash, actually pretty old version. I've got Flash 5, but I almost never use it. Like hardly ever. Okay, I would say perhaps a little. So you can hit Control. This is a tween, so we can kind of get away with murder. But you can use the Control key to get a little bit of that rubbery, almost like the Krita Liquify tool. Not quite. Now, if I wanted the kind of control you can get with the Liquify tool, the best way to do it would be to grab a selection and then use Control click to sort of stretch it, and then just patch the hole, which in this case is not a bad idea, actually. So you can do quite a lot if you're willing to take 5 seconds to patch the hole. So I hit the R key and then the B key, so I can just go in and patch that. So definitely quite useful, almost as useful as the Liquify tool. And I would say the artifacting that results is probably pretty similar. So in other words, once you stretch something with the selection tool, it's going to get a little bit fuzzy. Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I was thinking Toon Boom, Harmony, whatever is vectors all the way, but maybe I'm wrong about that. That's what I was thinking. Control C, vectors all the way. All right, and I'm going to go S key, Control V. I just think it's so cool that we can cut and paste into Tahoma now. So cool. I can see some artifacting that's going to have to be fixed. Should I fix this in Krita? Yeah. Why am I going to go through and try to fix that here when I've got the ability to fix it here by painting in behind mode? So I'm going to hit my brush tool, grab that color, but let's just go to behind mode. And now it's almost like stupidly easy. Oh, well, unless you have alpha lock turned on. Stupidly easy to fix. Why, it's a brain dead operation, I tell you. Got a little problem right there we're going to have to come back to. Okay, so you can use rasters in Moho now to animate. Well, that's actually been true for a long time. I mean, they haven't had good drawing tools, but I actually think Moho is a great program. Written mostly in Lua, actually. Now, Animate Studio Pro was actually the first 2D animation program I really started working with. One of my earliest YouTube videos was how to do lip sync in Animate Studio Pro. Very, very stable. Very, very capable if you're into like the puppet animation type thing. You know, it's just that you're going to have to pay somewhere between, well, last I checked, somewhere between 40 and $300 or whatever, depending on what version you get. I can't remember what they're charging for the full Monte. I just don't remember. Okay, that's looking better. Control A, Control C, and we hit the S key, so we're in the selection tool, and we hit Control V, paste in place, and now we can just dive right into going like this. And I'm just doing this just to see if there's any imbalances or anything that I just may be feeling like I should try to fix. There is in her face. This is my. Let me try this. What I was saying about sort of an alternative to the Liquify tool. What I'm seeing here is if I grab this And the cool thing is, if I screw this up, I can always just jump back into Krita, do it over there, and then re-import it or recut and paste it. Okay, so what I'm wanting to do here is, I guess I have to not be stupid. I guess this is what I'm wanting to fix. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of a big improvement right there. Right. That actually looks like TNR. Okay. So I just hit enter to keep that, and now I'm just going to go R key to sample that color, and then hit the brush tool, and we'll just patch the hole. We'll just patch it up. No big deal. R key, B key. R key, B key. So what I've just found increasingly is that the time cost of patching little holes like that is really, really low on balance compared to the time cost of trying to implement a maybe arguably more clever tool that makes it so you don't have to patch the hole. Well, the exception would be the plastic tool here in Tahoma, which sometimes it's a win, sometimes it's a loss. It just depends. Let me go back here. Here's Golik. Let's get Golik. Control A, Control C. Here in Tahoma, we'll smack him into a different layer. Control V. And there he is. Tahoma doesn't even force me to create a layer anymore. It just cuts and pastes it and automatically creates a raster level. I said layer when I meant level, by the way, for those of you who are keeping score of my semantic glitches. There we go. Okay, back up here, TV Paint and Toon Boom were always a bit pricey for me, as if I'm not doing regular pro projects with it. But all become reality at some point. You're doing frame-by-frame animation, you can do it all in... It's true. That's true. I mean, you can do frame-by-frame animation in Krita with layers, which means you can actually use Krita for frame-by-frame animation with vectors. I showed that the other day, actually. A lot of people don't realize that. It's just that you have to do it you just have to do layer-based animation, and then you need to convert your layers into an animated, raster layer. Okay. Control A, Control C. So this is kind of the same pose we saw over here, but that's okay. We're going to just kind of go with it. So, boop. And there it is. And now we're going to hit the S key again. Her positioning precisely here doesn't actually matter. In fact, I would even speculate that hitting Control, Shift, and maybe actually enlarging her a little bit would not be the worst thing in the world here. Okay, I'm going to liquefy this too. I'm not quite jamming on. Let me flip this and see. Yeah, I want to kind of... Whoops. Come on, Krita. Shift key to shrink down. So, yeah, we're just going to paste it in here. Boom. Let's just paste it in place. And as I said, this is a little bit risky because I'm having to size this a bit. But I believe what I did... Whoops, I didn't mean for that to happen. I wanted to hit Shift and Control. And it doesn't want to work. Okay. So you're going to make me do everything the hard way. Tahoma. Your Photoshop equivalent in DaVinci or Natron. Hit film, yep. DaVinci and Natron does. Natron's all node based. So is Blender. So is OpenTune. Let's say film. DaVinci is Resolve. Yeah. Yep. DaVinci Resolve. I'm a Vegas man. Okay, so here we are at 8 frames a second. And now we're just kind of looping things just to see how they move, if they feel like they're kind of sort of moving naturally. Okay, so here, what did I have here? I had about a, yeah, it's typical 1, 2, 3, 4. You sort of have a half a second to get into the shot, and then she's going to jerk her head up, and she goes up to about 6 frames, and then she's ranting and raving, and of course we have to draw her hands in there with her mouthings of protest. Save all. But DaVinci's UI, I love. Yep, horses for courses. Exactly, Steve. It's all opinion. I just use what I use because I use it. There's no... I've tried DaVinci. Every time I've tried to install DaVinci, for literally, we're talking going back like 10 years. Every couple of years, I try it again. Every single time ever. And the last time was only a couple months ago. I installed DaVinci. It immediately crashes. And I'm like, okay, I know there's an explanation, but any software that crashes as its very first way of welcoming you into its experience is like, nope, not going to spend any time with that one today. Sorry. Call me, spank me. Alright, now, let's think about backgrounds here. I'm going to grab these 2 columns, move them over. Yeah, I mean the database element could be, hey Chissa, the database element could be a good thing. Now here, what we need to do, let's save our work, and then why don't we open the last shot, and what we will do is, let's see, okay, we'll take her out. Well, anyway you slice it, we're going to have to he is not needed in this, so I'm going to actually just hit Control E and then Control C. Not even going to try to save this. Not going to save it. No, I don't want to save it. Now watch, something will go wrong with the cut and paste, so I'll have to do the whole thing again. Boop. Okay, so now this is kind of an important step. This is obviously scale-wise, like completely whacked. However, having said that, let's use the Animate tool so that we can just in case we want to make an adjustment later. So I'm going to put this in all modes so that I can just scale things up. And okay, so there's the straight scale. So what we want is something, whoa, kind of like that. Oh, I see. Okay, I did have a stupid attack. That's okay though. Obviously the bars can't be. Oh dear. Oh dear. The bars can't be in there. Stupid. Hey, stupid. So I do have to do it again. That sucks. Well, these things always go a lot faster the second time. So those bars should not be in there. And that should not be in there. So now if we select all of our layers and bake them down, we can... I said bake them down. Select all. Control C. I won't close it this time. I'll opt not to be stupid. And I'm going to hit the S key and go boom. And there it is. Of course, already scaled. So problem solved. What did that take? 30 seconds? Alright, I just saw Valerie walk by. I'm going to go chit-chat with her for a minute. So, yeah, something like that. Got a little bit of color correction to do. A little bit of balancing required. But basically not too bad. Basically not too bad. And then we're going to obviously have the same situation down here. Right down here. Okay guys, I am going to be back in a couple. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm going to grab a big honkin' brush here, like this, and I'm going to type the words back in 5, which puts me at, let's just say, 10, 10 EST-ish. Okay, back in a few. And it is 10:11, so hence 10:10-ish turns out to have been about right. Okay. So now I just use what I know will work and not crash all the time. Right on, man. Yeah, I basically started the animation thing around 2018 as well. Okay, so here, what are we going to do? I say we press the B key and we create. So I'm being bold by just kind of doing a painting. Let's just do a painting on his background. This will all make sense shortly. Okay, get that in there. Let's kind of grab the airbrushy brush as well. Actually, okay, I probably need to take Golic out of there so we're not. yeah, that might be. Whoops. Hopefully I didn't just paint onto Golic. I didn't. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, grab this. Hit the R key, sample that. Looks like that's sized kind of high. Again, I'm going to grab that and make it a little darker. Sorry, little boo-boo. Back to the B key. So we can just kind of put some little gradient under this. This is a tight close-up, and boy, if you want to see how tight close-ups can be done, watch The Emperor's New Groove. I don't love the story, but I tell you, some of the art aspects of that movie are really good. I like the characterizations. Oh, geez, look what I just did. Okay, that was stupid. I just did the same thing again that I've done in Krita a billion times, which is accidentally start painting in the wrong layer. It happens. It happens. So I want to really let this darken out. And now what I'm going to do is grab this and go really dark. Okay. So let's just make this bigger. That's too big. That's too big. We don't want it that big. No. Split the difference, and then I want to be a little more vertical, I think. Yeah, we'll keep them vertical. Okay. This is going to be hard to do. Alright, yes or no? Actually, strike that. I'm going to not do that. What I am going to do is I'm just going to put the indication maybe of the doorway back here. And then I guess we've got a pretty obnoxious tangent there, so let's do that just so it's not unrealistically just kissing his cheek, which looks kind of stupid. Okay, then the question becomes, do we want to actually provide a little bit of a highlight push out here from in the hallway? I think so. Kind of like that. And then maybe a slight bit here as well. Okay, I think that's probably good. I think that's probably all we need for that close-up. We don't want to go too far on a tight close-up with the backgrounds. I mean, if it was a real film situation, obviously it'd probably be pretty much out of focus. Okay, so now you can see here that obviously because it's cropped in like that, right? So that might be something we want to address. Actually, let's address that. I'm actually glad that happened now that I think about it. We've got that same shot that we just created. So let's match that. Let's match that. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so now we're into painter mode. This is just pure, let's just paint this thing. Not the greatest idea ever, in the sense that really probably this would be easier to do in Krita by kind of a wide margin. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll just go with it for the moment. So if you guys are not into, it's a little bit big, but this is where we're gonna enjoy just scrubbing. And in fact, actually what I should do is I should hit the fill tool, and I should do that, because otherwise what can happen with the My paintbrushes is the painting looks good, but you don't realize it only looks good if you actually had a black background underneath it, because there is, in fact, you know, an alpha channel that you're not realizing is there. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but so I'm just gonna, I'm kind of in scribble mode here, because just kind of feeling it, what's gonna maybe kind of sort of work. And this I'm gonna sort of rethink a little bit. So we definitely want the walls of this place to be kind of creepy and rocky. Well, the reality is, actually, I think I'm going to probably cut and paste this into Krita, because this would be kind of a lot easier over there. But I'm not quite ready to do that yet. Frankly, you could cut and paste it into my paint too. I seem to use cut and paste a lot. Cut and paste is a very simple, very useful thing. Okay, and now we'll just kind of say that the walls have a bit of a local color to them. And so here we have a doorway. Okay, another point that occurs to me actually is that okay, when this is wide, what occurs to me is that this might need to actually be a hole. I'm going to probably have to just create another version of it and cut the doorway out, because otherwise how are we going to have Fala come through the doorway if there's no doorway? Oh my. Okay, so one thing that would be really, really cool in this wide shot probably would be some kind of lighting situation, but then of course the question becomes, well, are you going to animate it? Right? So what I'm going to do is give myself a little bit of kind of dirtiness, let's say, on these interior walls, so they're not as rocky as the exterior walls. That's okay. It's not like a rule, you know. You make the walls the way you want them. Okay, so now if you really wanted to actually drive this home quite nicely, I'm thinking what you'd probably want to do is maybe just put just a little crack in the wall. Just a little something like that. Little something. Little something. Like that. So those cracks, and I think I'll do one down here too. So those cracks can now pick up a little bit of light. So I'm going to grab the R key and kind of zoom in a bit here. And now hit the B key, and we'll just say, oh yeah, that's just going to catch a little bit of that light. And those little touches like that go a long freaking way to making background paintings pop. Because it's mostly, because people don't like study your backgrounds, you know. So the question is, well, what do they feel when they're looking at your character, but what do they feel? And hopefully what they feel is that little bit of texture that kind of drives it home, man. Drives it home. Little hole in the wall. Okay, and another thing we could do, argue, but this is not too bad. It's not too bad. We could even add a little bit of a spray bottle texture. I don't know. I think I'll skip that for now. I think I'll skip that. Skip that, man. Okay. We're going to ignore the fact that we're not really being clear about what the nature of the door is. We can do that because what we're going to do is we're going to tell ourselves that, well, we never saw the door open. What we did see, however, come to think of it, is we had those bars in the foreground. So you know what we should do? I'll tell you what. It's easy. Easy peasy. What we'll do is we'll grab this, and this is actually going to really drive home this painting nicely. I'm just going to go like this. Like this. I'm just going to cut a piece out right here. That's all we need. Little piece. And let's fill it. Let me think about this. Theoretically, I guess it would actually be a little lighter out in the hallway, I think. The hallways are a little more well lit, right? So let's do that. No, I'm going to paint that by hand. I'm going to paint the texture in by hand. So B key. Just feel it. Don't fight it. Just feel it. That's what Sammy said. Don't fight it. Just feel it. Sam Cooke live at the Copa. Sam Cooke. Actually, strike that. Let's backpedal just a little bit here. I want these. Don't fight it, just feel it. Okay, R key, boom. R key, boom. Let's go back to 0. Hello, 0. Okay, a little bit of texture, a little texture. I have to confess, I do enjoy more and more doing background paintings. Something about doing background paintings, it's pretty cool. Okay, not sure if that quite worked. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to grab that color right there. Let's pull that up a little bit and rotate it around to the blue part of the spectrum so we can just get a little bit of steel into these bars. Now, at this time in history, would they have even had steel? I don't know. Don't know, don't care. Don't know, don't care. It's a cartoon. We're just going to work a little bit of that steely blue character into those bars. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really buying the look of the walls. I'm thinking we want this to be dark out there, not light-ish. So, yeah, live and learn. In other words, the contrast with the bars is more important than the concept of making it feel like there's a light source out there. And we can still have the light kind of drifting down from the ceiling. So, you know, this is one of those things that I'm sitting there going, yeah, this might not work, but we'll try. We'll try. That actually worked quite well, didn't it? Yes. Alright, so now I'm going to go R key and then go a little bit of a few shades up from there. So I can just catch a little bit on this lip. A little bit on this lip. I think Ed Tadeo would say, Dave, your background painting's coming along. You haven't quite caught up to me yet, but, you know, Ed's a good background painter. Okay, I'm going to zip out and say, does that look okay? It kind of sort of does. If we hit the N key, you can see the textures are, you know, not too coarse, not too fine, not too bad. All right. Cool beans. Now if we go back here, you can see we probably need to make an adjustment here. So the somewhat non-stupid way of doing it would probably be to take this background painting, even though it's in the same layer, and let's just put it in a different level so that we can then yeah, we'll pull this down here so there's an animation key, and then we can hit the animation tool and simply decide where we want things. I'm gonna go with that, methinks. Again, the focus is going to be on Golic. We're not going to be thinking a lot about the background. So I think we're okay. File, save all. Yeah, I don't mind this background painting a bit. I think it actually came out pretty nice. So there, now is Tahoma about to crash? Might be, actually. Nope. So yeah, I mean, really not horrible. This is where I probably wish I had a curves tool. Let's explore that for a moment. So what would that look like if you really wanted to figure out a way to do it? This is what I would have to do. I'm going to hit the Alt F key, so I'm actually in full screen mode, and then I'm going to hit the N key. Okay, N key, and then I'm going to actually just do a print screen, Alt print screen. Hence, now I can come back over here, probably in a whole new Krita, go new, and we're going to create it from the clipboard. Boom. And I guess I need to hit Control V again, but anyway, there it is. So now we can go Control M and piddle around with actually doing color mods, which is pretty slick. Pretty slick. If I was going to do it, I would probably pump the contrast a bit. We're obviously getting a nasty boost of saturation. And you say, well, wait a minute, if you're going to bake that into your painting, then isn't that a little risky? Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give this a little bit more of a concrete-y hue. So we're going from that to that, right? Okay, this looks pretty good. I'm going to reset this and redo it. All right, so I'm going to just see if a very, very broad increase in the high end is helpful. And then, or do we want an S-curve? I think we probably do want a little bit of an S-curve. Okay, I like that, so I'm going to keep it. And then what I can do is just go Control A, Control C, and we'll add it to Tahoma over here. We'll just let's just make a duplicate of this background painting, and then we can hit the S key here and paste that in. Let me see. It looks like, did it resize it? Yeah, I mean, I guess it did. Huh. Not quite sure how we wound up. Okay. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, strike that. Hit the Z key. What's happening is that's because of the Animate tool. So we're not looking at the painting. We're looking, there we go. We were looking at the scaled version of the painting. So now we just have both of them, right? No biggie. And then if we go back here, we can always hit the Q or the W key to toggle between these and maybe consider just switching between them. So we've got them both, and that's fine. And if I hit File, Save All, Tahoma is going to save all these paintings. It's going to save them in the Extras folder, so I know precisely where to go if I really, really need to get to those paintings for editing purposes, and it's in the Projects Extras folder. So if we scan through here, we're going to see them, I bet. That's not it. That's not it. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, here we go. There they are. So Tahoma has saved local copies of all of those paintings for us. Thank you, Tahoma. And now we go back to our storyboard, and we are back in business. Okay, so at this point, what we have is we've got this first wide shot, but maybe on the second wide shot, I might actually have a person blow by the window in the foreground to indicate the servant girl that's coming in. Okay, so those are all interesting ideas, but the big takeaway is the vast majority of this entire 30-second sequence, you know, a lot of the assets that are going to allow us to knock out the animation are already done. That's pretty cool. We like that. We do. Okay, so so now I am going to explore whether we want to what we want to do with her mouth. I think for now, for this particular pose, I think I'm just going to hit the old B key, grab this brush, sample our outline color, and just tighten up her mouth a little bit and let it be baked into this particular pose. We can always hit the D key and make a duplicate of it. For the purpose of erasing it, typically is what we'd be doing, so that we can put lip sync in there. But right now we're not up to the lip sync, so we'll just do what we have to do to get to where we need to get to. So, alright, so what is Golik's line of dialogue? Oh my, but you are the lucky one. That's kind of how he talks. Oh my, you are the lucky one. And then she's going to be like, what is the meaning of this? Right? So I'm going to hit the B key. Boop. Okay, what did that do? That created, and we're going to go in. We're going to go in 4 frames before we start any lip sync. Okay, so now I thought I set the hotkey the other day for a horizontal flip, but it does not seem to be working. It does not seem to be working. And so I'm just going to kind of doodle this in here. I think, actually, let me make a little bit of a mod there. A little bit of a mod. So now this is a Toon's raster level, or what Tahoma calls a smart raster level. Same thing. And that means that because it's smart, it keeps track of the pixel data in its layer, thus allowing us to change the color, adjust the transparency, whatever, after the fact. Which is kind of useful. Alright. Maybe we need to do that. Alright, now I'm not quite happy with that. Yeah, I'm going to stick with Animate convention. I think that's been serving me well. So you guys are like, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is doing the lip sync as essentially 3 shapes. Closed, open, and open wide. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to hit the D key to make a duplicate of that. And then I'm just going to select this because that shape looks okay. I might have to tighten it up a little bit, but yeah, because it's going to be blurred a bit because of the scaling. So now I'll just go in and tighten up the edge a bit. I think I want to actually darken that a little. Okay, B key. And this is where a little rotation might not be the worst thing in the world. And again, B key. Go in here and just smack that edge. Smack that edge. Tighten that up a little bit. It's kind of interesting, actually, that the smart raster level blurs out the way it does when you stretch it. Because if you think about it, that doesn't actually make sense. You know why? Because a palette entry is only a single color, and when you blur it because of aliasing, because of stretching the pixels out or whatever, you're actually introducing, like right through here, you're introducing a very large number of different colors. Now probably that's probably happening as a function of transparency, not a function of color. So that's probably why you can kind of excuse it. Hope that made sense. If it didn't, I don't know. I don't think I want to try to explain it twice. Boom. Okay. So now we will hit Shift Alt R, which is a hotkey I specifically set up for myself. Not quite happy with that. I'm kind of wanting to feel a little bit more attitude there, folks. A little bit more stretchy poo here on the, yeah. But yeah, whatever. I'm just trying to find the pose that feels good. Okay, so we're okay. Let's just stick to the dialogue. Oh my, but you are the lucky one. So that would be, oh my, but okay, Tahoma, what the heck was that? What the heck did you just do? That's a little weird. Why did it just... I gotta check something now. That's good. I'm just gonna delete this layer. Not sure what little hotkey or whatever I must have pressed. Oh my. But you are the lucky one. And then this would be actually image number 1. Okay, get rid of that. And so that says to me, this has got to breathe for at least a half a second, probably more like 1 second. So back to the top, back to the top. He comes in, door opens up, she looks up. Oh my, but you are the lucky one. Okay, so those of you who are purist Disney types are going to be like, oh man, that lip sync doesn't like, really? You're like, man, really? You know, for me, I can take it. No, he doesn't. Okay, I'm strongly disagreeing with you. Steve Riggs, wrong, wrong, wrong. No. Professor Farnsworth is... Okay, so yeah. I'm saying Golik's going to say, oh my, but you are the lucky one. Professor Farnsworth would say, oh my, but you are the lucky one. Big difference. Okay, no data? Really? Really? That's what you're going to do? It says it's streaming, and it says no data, and now it says excellent connection. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at OBS, and it's like, I don't know if it's coming through. Yeah, Professor Farnsworth has a higher voice, like, you know. I know because I've had to voice Farnsworth a whole bunch in that Futurama fan script I wrote. Yeah, can you just see Golik? Oh my, good news, everyone. I'm here to take you out of your chains. What? No, that's not Golik. That's not Golik. Golik is more like this. Yes. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a boxy voice. Boxy, I say. Aren't you the lucky one? Oh, you can stop complaining now, Princess. You ought to be grateful. Grateful for your mother giving you this opportunity. All you do is complain, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what does Tianara say? She says, this is outrageous. Oh, spare me. You ought to show your mother a little appreciation. Okay, all right. I'm going to do this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a couple steps here. Let me check this. Okay, so she moves up here. So this gets a little complicated, folks. I'm going to show you why this might get a little complicated. If I want to do a little plastic tool here, then I want to grab this, hit the X key, and create a mesh. We're doing it. We're going. We're rocking. Boom. Done. Okay. So now, that will allow us to do a little bit more acting with Tianara right here. So I'm going to go, I'm just going to kind of play it safe. Normally I want to have a double root, actually. I like to give myself a little latitude in case I have to grab a hold of this and move the whole character around like that. So, okay, so we're going to go boom, boom, keep this simple. Normally this is probably not the worst thing ever to give a little bit of protection along here. Probably it's conceivable we would want to move her shoulders. So let's put some bones in the shoulder area. And we're going to say if this was going to move her shoulder, we really wouldn't want the actual shoulder shape to change much. We would just want to move this and have the whole shoulder move kind of as a unit. So I'm going to say let's do that, put that there, and then we'll kind of again put that in there. But what if the shoulders did move? We would not want the arms to move. We would actually want this to stretch a bit. So again, what we would really want is probably something like, let's protect these guys and then snap that up there so that one can move away from the other as it were. That will make sense here in a moment. Okay, that looks like that's probably pretty good. Generally another pose. Okay. So, animate. So let's just see how it works. We'll just put in a dummy key just to see. So that works. That looks good. That works. That looks good. Again, those extra nodes help you really control it. And then that way, if her shoulders were to rise up, as I said, we've got this down here controlling the bottom piece. So, and again, if we actually turn off keep distance, we can take this and we can even lower this a little bit to get her in the frame a little better. So, I mean, that's pretty good control, frankly. What we can't do very well here is the facial expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and fiddle with that just to see what we can get away with. Just to see. So what I'm going to do is this is almost always backfired for me, but I'm going to try it. Okay, so if I was going to do this, what I would do is I would say, let me think about this for half a second. All I really want to do is have the ability to make her scowl. So I think I'm just going to try this. I don't know if this will work. I'm sure it won't, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to put that a little higher, and I'm actually going to put an extra node right there. Whoops, I don't want that one. And then I'm going to take this and just move it into position right in the middle. This is probably surely not going to work, but I'm going to try. I'm going to save it. Savey, poo. It's probably taking a little bit of time to save because those background paintings are kind of large. And when you hit save all, you're essentially saving every single thing. Not just the scene, but all the assets that are contained in the scene. So, okay, so now if we go to animate mode, what I wanted to find out is, can we have her scowl a bit like that? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to a second keyframe so I can delete the keyframe when it doesn't work, which I'm sure it's not going to. So I took off, okay, I can already see something I want to tweak. So let's go back into build skeleton mode. If we're going to have this move in, then we need to protect this stuff. So this bone's going to move in, we need to protect that. Okay, so this is just to see if it's going to be even possible to pull off a scowling situation with the plastic tool. As I say, every time I've tried this, it hasn't worked that well. This looks like it might be okay. And then we can even maybe do this a little bit. But again, same situation. The more you try to control, the more you have to be careful. I often find myself more and more doing stuff like this. just putting in a bunch of extra nodes. Okay, that was not supposed to happen. Because I don't want this little dot to change shape, right? What time is it? 10:49. Okay. I got a split in the 11:30 zone today. So, okay, let's turn the plastic tool off. Click over here, and let's just see what happened here. Like I said, I'm sure this won't work, but it's worth a try. Yeah, it doesn't. It just makes her look cross-eyed. It just looks kind of stupid. That's not to say it couldn't work. It's to say that the way I did it didn't work. So we'll go back here and go back in here and maybe not tweak that quite so much. But yeah, I see what's going on. Her one eye's moving down, but the other eye's moving up, which makes absolutely no sense. So that's okay. That's okay. So again, this was just an experiment, and I told you it probably wasn't going to work. It's kind of okay, actually. That actually might... The main thing I'm looking at is, does it fundamentally change her? Like, I know this character, and is what I'm doing changing her characterization? Is it actually doing harm to her characterization? I would say kind of not really in this case. Actual size is that. Yeah, you almost could get away with this. We'll see. I may do that. I may not do that. But there it is, just in case we decide it's something we want to do. Okay. So let's again save our work. Save early. Save often. And man, I've been live streaming for 3 hours. That's a long time. That's a long time. I wonder what the news is out there today. Oh, it's such a crazy week. Finally going to do the old inauguration thing this week. Okay, what is her line? This is outrageous. Okay, so let's just see what we can do with that. Tianara says, this is outrageous. Okay, so I think it's going to be something like this. This is outrageous. Boom, right there. So right here, she would have she kind of lean in, and she's gonna actually lift up her shoulders. Okay, I'm seeing a little anomaly right there, but I can fix it. And then she's supposed to actually lift her hands up, right? On another layer. I kind of forgot about that. So we'll just have the hands lift up and into the shot. So I'm going to pause here. I think I'm actually going to quit because I got some things I need to take care of today. And I'm maybe getting a little bogged down with this plastic tool stuff, but this is not bad. It's not bad. It's just not great. It's not bad. If we tighten these up to make them look more like conventional anime type tweens, this is outrageous. Let it run. Boom. Yeah, you're the lucky one. Okay, she pops up. Boom. This is outrageous. Okay, I don't think... I think this is this is literally a one-framer. Yeah. Changes pose. And then this gradual animation from one position to the other looks completely stupid. Just doesn't fit this type of show at all. So, we're going to go, this is outrageous. Alright, now, there is one tweak. And this is why working with the plastic tool does kind of get old after a bit, because you know, you just notice you got to sort of tweak this to compensate for that, and it becomes a real laborious process that would have been much faster just to redraw the character. Everything I'm doing here probably would have been done just as quickly and maybe even better, just doing additional poses. So this is what you kind of live and learn and try. You live, you learn, you try. But I do like the change in attitude, so let's stick with it. We'll stick with that. Okay. Sorry about the buffering. Sorry about the buffering. I know of a guy on YouTube who has like 20,000 people that watch his live streams, and he has these same issues. It's incredible. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for now. I'll probably be back somewhat late-ish in the afternoon today. Got some running around I got to do, and so we will see you guys. As you know, there will be more later.